White Christmas, a beloved classic with an Irving Berlin score. It's not a Christmas movie. Now, I love this movie, but for about the first 40 years of my life, I kinda didn't. Mostly because it's barely a Christmas movie. Young me was confused by all the showbiz scenes and the lack of,
Santa Claus and ho ho ho.
The movie's about show business and romance, and most effectively, it's about respect for veterans. And in its way, it's the anti-Die Hard. It's a movie everyone assumes is about the holidays, but spends more time on work and war. I've clocked this. Of course you did. In this movie, there's about 20 minutes, 16% about the war and veterans, 30 minutes about showbiz, 25%, and a little under 8 minutes, 6.5%, about Christmas. Now, once I got past this movie's title, I fell in love with it. 95% of it. The movie has 3 songs about the Army and about 1.5 about Christmas. Snow, a terrific song, mentions Christmas in passing, but even that song started out as Free, a song about why we fight. The basic plot. A couple of war buddies go home and they form a successful Broadway team. Bing Crosby is a workaholic, and Danny Kaye, who finds Bing exhausting, thinks that marriage would chill Bing out. Conveniently, they meet the Haynes sisters, also in show business, and they agree to join the sisters on a trip to Vermont. And there they bump into their former commanding officer, General Waverly, who has sunk all of his money into a ski lodge with no snow. The 4 entertainers put on a show to save the ski lodge and the general's pride. Of course, they all fall in love. And then they put on Santa suits and sing White Christmas as the conclusion to an army-themed party for the general, and the much-needed snow begins to finally fall on the ski resort. In the 1950s, the nation was still coming to grips with World War II. Masses of men had returned home after facing death and extreme loneliness, and now here they were back in suburban America. This movie shows how the war has affected these characters' vocabulary.
I can't help feeling this is a tactical error.
Their friendships.
Let's just say we're doing it for a pal in the Army, huh?
The vehicles they drive, their sense of self. The Broadway duo came together because of a life debt that one owes the other from a battle. A former potato peeler has become this Ed Sullivan-like superstar, but the once great General Waverly gets mistaken for a janitor. In a lot of ways, White Christmas echoes the better but less remembered film Best Years of Our Lives, which dealt brilliantly with the same material and swept the 1946 Oscars. Obviously, White Christmas's mass appeal is partly because it's a musical comedy, whereas Best Years is a heavy drama. But if you get moved by General Waverly's story and have not yet seen Best Years of Our Lives, you need to go check that out. This movie is extremely stylish. It has a sharp script.
Will you stop worrying about Mr. Wallace? We like to take care of our friends.
We're practically strangers.
Well, we'd like to take care of that, too.
Juiced up by Bing Crosby's crazy hepcat vocabulary.
Here, grab the cow.
And fantastic costuming and art direction. As I've said in a previous video, there are some movies that I'll just watch for the costumes and furniture. White Christmas is one of those. The ski lodge set is a mid-century inspiration. I want that fire pit. I want that bar. I want that wooden show floor. I even want the snug sleeper car and that tin dining car where Bing Crosby and Danny Kaye spend the night. And for costuming, legendary designer Edith Head, who did 433 films over 57 years, outdoes herself here. The guys wear form-fitting tweedy suits, occasionally over-the-top cravats, but you know nobody's perfect. The women do look perfect, the best outfit probably being Vera Ellen's houndstooth skirt, cozy sweater, and turtleneck that have you questioning why Danny Kaye doesn't immediately say yes to marrying her. Also, she packs on this East Coast excursion at least 3 killer bathrobe pajama sets.
Mutual, I'm sure.
White Christmas features 2 of the best voices in Hollywood, Bing Crosby and Rosemary Clooney. It was written for 2 singers and 2 dancers as a follow-up to Holiday Inn, with Bing and Fred Astaire being planned for the leads. Fred passed on it. They eventually ended up with Danny Kaye, who can outdance Bing, but he's mostly here for comic relief. Your mileage for Danny Kaye may vary by taste. In White Christmas, as in Hans Christian Andersen, Kaye shows he can really act when called upon to do so. But while he's pretty funny here,
You know, in some ways, you're far superior to my Cocker Spaniel.
I've always found him a little distracting in flicks like The Inspector General or Walter Mitty, where the original works by Nikolai Gogol or James Thurber already had plenty of their own acerbic wit and didn't really need Kay's injection of vaudeville. But the fourth member of the quartet, Vera Ellen, is what made me turn the corner and start loving this film. As the innocent-looking Judy Haynes, she is the puppet master. She hitches the Haynes sisters act to Crosby and Kay's coattails to elevate their careers. She connives Clooney and Crosby into a romance, and she burrows through Danny Kaye's defenses until he just gives up and marries her.
Well, you don't think I'm the kind of girl that goes around throwing myself at a man, do you?
Of course not. Nobody thinks that.
And as good as her dance partner, John Braskia, may be, she steals or saves every dance number she's in. The best things happen while you're White Christmas is a let's put on a show musical. Most of the numbers are plays within the play, a trick 1950s musicals love to use in movies like, The Bandwagon or An American in Paris, to showcase the talents of their cast. And there's a lot of talent here. Most songs in White Christmas are being performed either on stage or in rehearsal, but 3 times the movie goes full musical fantasy as people sing with an orchestra during, their normal lives. Personally, I like a full-on musical where people sing about their emotions, but the let's put on a show musicals feature the characters performing within their own world, which is a different artistic choice. White Christmas mostly sticks to let's put on a show, but blurs the lines in interesting ways. For example, The Best Things Happen While You're Dancing begins as a song being played at a Miami club in the real world, but then it turns into a fully choreographed dance sequence outside the venue on a dock where Danny Kaye and Vera Ellen can't possibly hear the band or have prepared these moves. Later, a New York theater troupe totally knows the same song and plays it at a party, although they weren't actually in Miami to have learned it. The lines between reality and fantasy start to blur. Count Your Blessings pushes that even further. Bing Crosby and Rosemary Clooney are up late one night and they confess their love singing a duet. It's a fantasy musical convention. Bing is not actually writing this song at the fire pit. There's no orchestra in the room playing the tune. But the next day, Bing suggests to Clooney that they reprise the song for their show. The song has somehow slid from fantasy into reality. There was a movie back in the 90s called Jean et le Garçon Formidable, and it tried to tackle this issue. It's a very 90s movie about HIV, and it's set in a world where musicals are reality. The main characters sing and dance, but sometimes they'll meet and drink coffee while in the background other people's musical stories are being played out. It puts the musical genre on trial. Does everyone experience the musical numbers or just the main characters? Is it all a psychological projection? Are other people's musicals actually going on elsewhere? We are all the center of our own stories. So are my joys and sorrows worthy of song? And if I'm paying attention to my own songs, am I ignoring somebody else's musical? White Christmas has many great songs. Snow, We'll Follow the Old Man, The Best Things Happen While You're Dancing, and obviously White Christmas. But not every song in this movie is a classic. A couple of them show why it took me so long to get to like this movie. Choreography falls into that Danny Kaye territory. If you think it's funny, great. If you don't, well, then you're with me. But halfway through the song, Vera Ellen floats down tapping, and suddenly it becomes heavenly. My calves hurt just watching her. And then there's the movie's biggest musical scene. As a kid, I was completely baffled by it. Why these terrible jokes? What's up with the big banjos? Who's Georgie Primrose? And then as an adult, I went, oh. Oh, by the way, this is George Primrose. I don't get what's up with Irving Berlin and minstrel shows. This movie was made as a follow-up to Berlin's Holiday Inn, and in that there's a minstrel number that's pretty awful. Supposedly it celebrates President Lincoln, but...
Who was it set the darky free?
And in White Christmas's minstrel number, they sing about how they really wish those kinds of shows would come back. It's cringe-inducing. At least as a kid, I had no idea what was going on. But the scene is split into 2 halves. The minstrel show song first, and then Mandy. And I have to admit that Mandy is pretty great, if you somehow manage to disassociate it from that other song. Once again, Vera Ellen comes in to save the day, to perform one of the most acrobatic, fearless, sexiest dance numbers of all time. She's flipping, she's tumbling, she's absolutely amazing, and the previous song gets shut out of my memory. I'm just kind of amazed that the worst and best musical numbers in this movie could be glued together like this. And before the hate mail starts flowing in the comments section, which I've learned you can get for mentioning racism in a beloved classic, I'm not saying you're not allowed to enjoy a movie because of one scene that's in it. I enjoy 95% of this movie. I own a copy, I watch it frequently. I'm just saying you need to think about what you're watching. I'm gonna get hate mail for saying that. I'm getting used to it. So what have I learned? First, this movie is actually pretty great. It's like the anti-Die Hard. You think it's a Christmas movie, but it's really about war and love and show business. Secondly, it is okay to wrestle morally with art. Maybe a piece of art touches you, but also includes attitudes that you despise. You have to put it in perspective. I can look back at 20-something me and see the good in me, but still be appalled by some of the actions I took back then. That means I have not wasted the last 25 years. I've grown. Third, and I've said this before, there are some actors who do one thing brilliantly. In this movie, Danny Kaye transcends his shtick by giving a lovably nervous performance. Bing Crosby manages to be the hippest guy alive, as usual, despite having all the symptoms of being your washed-up uncle. And Vera Ellen can light up the screen better than anybody, even though she can't sing. Fourthly, even a formulaic mainstream Christmas movie can teach you things about bending genre conventions, and what that tells you about the real world. But if White Christmas has a main message, it's that business needs to be set aside or diverted sometimes in order to support and show love for those who really need it.
What's this going to set us back? Oh.
How much is wow?
General Waverly risks his career for the love of his men in World War II. Later, the men skip Christmas and show their love for him. Crosby and Kaye throw money and time away for the sake of helping a man that they admire. And even if it's not a Christmas movie per se, it's a movie about humility, sacrifice, and redemption. And that, after all, is the Christmas story.